Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the GFFN Euro Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me this week are French football journalist Jonathan Johnson and GFFN writers Eric Devine and Philippe Bargil. It's been a turbulent start to the European Championships, to say the least. The action on the field sometimes being eclipsed by incidents off it. However, there have been plenty of things to enjoy so far, and the good thing for us football fans is that it's only been the tip of the iceberg. But before we talk about all the news surrounding the European Championships, here are this week's headlines. First week of the European Championships have been marred by fan violence off the field. Incidents between Russian, English and local French fans in Marseille have hit the headlines, with Russian fans even climbing into the English stands after the game finished on Saturday evening. UEFA have reacted to these incidents by warning England and Russia that they could face expulsion from the tournament if there is any more fighting, with Russia being given a suspended sentence of being eliminated should any more issues happen. The FA have issued a plea to stop for the violence of the English fans, while a Russian FA official claimed their fans were defending the honour of their nation. There have also now this evening been unconfirmed reports of more tensions in Lille. There's a video of England and Welsh fans based for the game in Lille, ready for the game against Lens on Thursday, and incidents with the Russian fans who play Slovakia in the city tomorrow. There have also been reported incidents in Lille from German and Ukraine fans, and in Nice with local fans reportedly attacking Northern Ireland fans, and supposedly in Paris where there was reported incidents with fans and Turkish supporters outside the ground. A Northern Ireland fan has died after suffering a fall in Nice. 24-year-old Darren Rogers from Ballymena fell about 26 foot from a promenade onto a rocky beach, and police in France have said it was an accident and not in any way disorder related. All of us at GFFN send our best wishes to his family and friends at this difficult time. Back to the football, and in Group A, France got off to a winning start Friday evening thanks to a late goal from Dimitri Payet to earn them a 2-1 victory over Romania. They topped the group just above Switzerland, who beat 10-man Albania 1-0 the following day. Wales won 2-1 against Slovakia after goals from Gareth Bale and Hal Robson-Kanu, which puts them top of Group B after England were held to a 1-1 draw against Russia as Vasily Berezutski scored in added time. Poland dominated their game against Northern Ireland but only managed a 1-0 victory, with Adarish Milik scoring the winner as Germany slipped by Ukraine with a 2-0 win with goals from Shotran Mustafi and Bastian Schweinsteiger. Croatia put in an excellent performance against Turkey, but despite their numerous chances, Luka Modric's only goal was the difference before Spain eventually broke down the Czech Republic's a day later as Gerard Piqué's header saw them win 1-0. Ireland were a little unlucky to draw a 1-1 against Sweden, with Wes Houlihan's goal being cancelled out by a Kieran Clark own goal, before Italy put on a masterclass against the top-ranked team Belgium, running out 2-0 winners. And finally, Hungary caused the first upset of the tournament earlier today as they won 2-0 against 10-man Austria in Group F, while Portugal play Iceland in just under an hour. And that is all your news, and remember, to keep up to date, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com or follow us on Twitter at GFFN, and please follow our dedicated Euro channel at GFFN Euro 2016. Also, if you'd like to get involved with the show, if you're listening live, either write a question in our YouTube comments or tweet us at the GFFN show with your queries. We start tonight where, in all honesty, we would hope we would never have to. Clashes between fans have dominated the headlines since the start of the tournament, with fights in Marseille around the game between England and Russia being the most significant. There are also reported incidents in other places around France. But Philip, you were at the Stade Velodrome on Saturday. Tell us your experience.
Well, my experience of the Stade Velodrome are very good. It's just I just happened to be in the riot at the Vieux-Port at 3:30 in the afternoon, which I didn't really understand. I didn't think it was a big deal. The problem was that we arrived at Marseille around 1:30. Had to check in our hotels very quickly because people had to go. It was actually Airbnbs, and very quickly people had to go to work. And they were quite happy to go to work because there's a whole place was full of English fans. So there's a rumors there were 250,000. That's a bit much, I reckon. But anyway, and you can always you could already hear the English fans sing their songs and being absolutely pissed already. And it was it was just before 3 o'clock, and when the riot actually happened, I didn't actually believe it was the Russians taunting the English. I said, well, why would they? They're just so outnumbered. It turns out that it was a very organized hooligan group who weren't drunk, who were completely sober, who knew what they were doing, and who terrorized the whole city center. No, so not just at the Vieux-Port, where clashes erupted on Thursday evening, Friday evening, and the whole day on Saturday. But also in the fan zone, we were unable to go to the fan zone. We wanted to take the bus. The bus was not going to the fan zone because there was too much trouble. And we really struggled actually to get to the ground because I think only one bus line in the whole city worked, and that bus line thankfully took us to the tube, and the tube took us to the stadium. Now in the stadium there was reports of there being trouble as well. Well, when I got there, it was much more peaceful. The tension was nothing to do with what happened at the Vieux-Port or inside the ground. But as the day got on, it got even worse because the Russians actually rioted after they equalized, and I couldn't really believe it. I couldn't believe, how does this happen? Why? I don't really believe in segregation in those types of games because I actually bought my ticket via Russian. It says Russian Federation on it, and you can't really segregate. If you wanted, you'd have one massive England part, massive Russian part, and you do, but you always get the black market in those type of games. So it's extremely difficult to segregate, and I really sympathize with people who are in charge of that, especially when I see the stewards, because the stewards are basically people like me, only they're wearing a yellow shirt. And what do you want? I mean, what do you expect them to do? It's not like they have weapons or anything, so you can't really do anything. And I admit I was afraid when the rioting started, and I thought it would kick off even worse from the stadium to the center of town, which is called Castellan, and thankfully that didn't happen. But it was still still quite a scary experience, and I think I can safely say I'm never going to Marseille again. At least, for that type of game.
Philip, I just wanted to talk about, you mentioned the stewards there. How was policing around and inside the ground as well? And also, how was getting into the stadium? How was the checks there?
It was very light. It was very light. There was only one search, but they didn't ask us for IDs or anything. So basically, if a terrorist wanted to go to the ground, all he had to do was go on Viagogo and spend lots of cash, or buy it on the black market. When you get out of the tube, there are lots of people who are selling tickets for actually for less money than I actually bought them. That's just for the record. But no, I didn't feel like it was a particularly thorough search of the people going inside the ground. And like I said, the stewarding, I mean, they can't do anything if there's a riot of so many people just barging forward. I remember I went to Manchester City versus PSG back in 2008, and there was, of course, the English fans taunting us, singing "You Surrendered in the War," which I found quite funny actually, from two sides. I don't get riled up in that kind of stuff, but some PSG fans did, and they really wanted to get past this steward wall. so to speak. But they had batons, they had weapons to dissuade people from trying. In Marseille, you didn't have anything. You just had a very small, just a couple of people just standing there saying, "Yeah, you can't go, you can't go through. But if you really want to, we'll let you through." So very, very light. I mean, very. I'm not an expert on that, but I want to say that France didn't really prepare that type of thing. I think there's a lot of problems in the country aside from Euro 2016. Not to mention a massive train strike today, and this just piles up a lot of things. I mean, in Marseille, my hostess in Marseille gave me a story which was quite unbelievable, saying, okay, he's got his eye his eyes bleeding, or the part over his eye is bleeding, but we can't take him to the hospital now because we don't have any gas. We don't have enough gas, so we might as well take as many injured as we can so he can get to the hospital. Because there's a gas shortage because people are on strike. It's just loads of things going on at the same time, and the authorities just can't deal with it at all. So it's madness. It really is.
And Jonathan, this is something we worried about occasionally last season with issues with fans in Marseille and occasionally in different places across France, but we never really expected something on the scale of this, did we?
No, absolutely not. But I think it's all part and parcel. Like Philip said, it's come at a very bad time. France don't only have to worry about the Euros right now. They've got to worry about the threat which has been hanging over them since at least November. If not before. You do have the strikes. You've also had recent heavy rain and flooding, which has caused problems in many areas. The security presence is spread so thin. It is very, very disappointing to have seen this kind of stuff happen. But also at the same time, it shouldn't be that much of a surprise, because I don't think that people could have expected that security would be, absolutely rock solid at every venue all the time during the tournament, considering everything else that has been going on in the last couple of weeks and months.
Eric, then, with that advice that there's been a lot of issues, obviously, economically and strikes with the trains and such in France, surely the UEFA should have helped out and created more planning and bring more help over from other countries, surely?
Well, I mean, that's hard to say. I mean, are you talking in terms of actual manpower, as in, a set of 500 Italian policemen are going to come help? I think that, that's not a thing that makes sense to suggest, because, after all, the reason that countries bid to host these tournaments is because they anticipate an economic boom, and that their bid process shows a demonstrable ability to deal with these sorts of things. That they have the police capabilities, they have the stadium capacity to host these types of tournaments. That being said, I feel like, as Philip rightly mentioned, and as Jonathan said as well, that I don't necessarily think that there's an inability with France to deal with these things on a larger scale. I think that they're being sort of hamstrung by what else is going on. As far as actual security in the stadiums, it would be nice if there were some way for UEFA to aid in that. I mean, let's face it, if there were to be some serious incident beyond fan violence, then I think that's egg on UEFA's face, as well as the French organizers of the tournament as well. Given what we've seen, here in the United States as well, there's still a lot of potential for violence, in this world. And if the checks are as light as Philip said, and there's no actual police or armed forces presence at the stadia, and people are hearing these reports, and if you're someone who has these ideas in your head, you're going to feel encouraged. Honestly, it's not a very ideal situation from a lot of perspectives.
And thinking about reports we mentioned earlier, that it seems like there's been video footage of more clashes between England and Welsh fans together against Russians in Lille as Russian fans prepare for that game against Slovakia tomorrow, and English fans and Welsh fans were both recommended to stay in the city with their game in Lens on Thursday. Philip, after this has all happened, what sort of measures need to be put in place and what action needs to happen to prevent these kind of things from happening?
The problem with France is that it's quite easy to get in. You just have to have some kind of a visa from Russia or anything. But once you're in the EU, you can go to France without any problem. You just take your car, and you don't get security checks. There's a lot of hooligans in Eastern European countries, and I think, yes, the police is not has not prepared well enough for that type of game, and has basically to me the police thought that this was going to be a great party for football, which is supposed to be, but since there haven't been any trouble in a while, there's not going to be any trouble now. Even though England are going to play Russia in Marseille at 9 o'clock in the evening. But however, I'm quite disappointed that there doesn't seem to be a lot of help from the Russians or from the from Eastern Europeans to say, okay, that guy's dangerous. You should, if you ever see that he's in France, you should send him back home. It's very difficult to police, like I said, because anybody can get in. It's not the same as in Brazil, where they have to take the plane. Not the same as in Russia and Ukraine, where it's a bit more difficult as well. And also that if you've got a bunch of hooligans wanting to cause riots, I mean, nobody can really stop them. I mean, these guys, what they usually do is that they prepare things against other firms. Except that on that occasion, the Russians didn't prepare anything against anyone. They just thought, okay, we'll just beat up civilians, which is quite pathetic. Right now, all the French authority can do is, I mean, they can host a major tournament, as they've done it before. Just get the numbers, get more people into there in really heavy risk game, and just hope that the really bad people don't show up.
Yeah, and
the weather the weather has a lot to do with what's going to happen in the next couple of days, because it wasn't heaving in Marseille. It wasn't particularly hot, like you couldn't walk in the sun, but it was a nice weather. It was a nice day, which is ironic. But if it rains like it is raining here in Paris for the next 2 days, it will definitely be less trouble in the streets, because less people in the bars on the so-called terrace and stuff like that. So it'll be less enjoyable for the fans, and if it's less enjoyable, there'll be less fans in the streets of Lille and Lens. But I wouldn't be surprised if the English police do send a lot of people. And actually, I've read reports, unofficial, that they actually offered the French police to send some guys there, experienced guys who know how to deal with crowd trouble, and the French police turned them down. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's true.
It is a strange situation, and it's unfortunate that these things still seem to be happening in football. But not to take blame of any side, really, because there's always bound to be idiots from any country. But hopefully it will simmer down in the next couple of days, and we can focus on what we should be focusing on, and that's the football. So we'll move on to that now, because that's what we should be talking about, really. And France kicked off the Euros on Friday night, but it wasn't going all their way. Despite taking the lead in the second half through Giroud, the hosts were pegged back by the Romanians from the penalty spot before that fantastic strike from Dimitri Payet saved the day late on. Jonathan, what was your take on their performance on opening night?
I thought that it was probably as good as we could have expected. I know that we made a lot about how deep this France squad is, how much talent there is, and there is plenty of talent. Nothing has really changed since the result. However, I think a lot of people forget that was France's first competitive fixture in almost 2 years. I think there were always going to be some nerves. There's always going to be pressure on them as hosts for this tournament, and I think that it was, there were some uncomfortable moments. However, I think that overall it was the result that counted, and they managed to get that at the end of the day.
Eric, what was your take? I mean, there was some moments where they looked a little bit disorganised, and in the second half, sometimes after that goal, they struggled to find that creative spark, and it was up to Payet to save the day in the end.
Yeah, and it's a shame. I mean, Deschamps has shown no lack of willingness to experiment tactically. I mean, going back to playing a 4-3-1-2 with Pogba behind, I believe it was Fekir and Benzema at the time, and the match when Fekir got injured back in September. But he continued to show this experimentation, and I think that a lot of the weaknesses of this team stem from the way that the midfield operates. I mean, Pogba, drifted in and out. He played some really nice long passes, and had some nice dribbles as well. But in terms of actually forging a connection with the attacking players, he didn't seem to get that. It didn't seem that he and Griezmann in particular were on the same wavelength. And Griezmann certainly worked hard to run about and find space, but there just didn't seem to be any sort of synchronicity between the two of them in particular. I felt that Blaise Matuidi, was forced to do too much work in terms of helping out Evra. The Romanian right backs. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his. Stepanaro was really getting forward and giving Evra a torrid time, which increased, which had the knock-on effect of increasing Matuidi's responsibilities in terms of helping to protect Evra. So he wasn't able to be as involved as he'd like. I mean, again, Matuidi is not going to be a goal-scoring threat, but just the fact that he's another runner to track is going to create more space for the attack. And I think that the team actually looked a lot better once Pogba came off, and I think that that's giving Deschamps a lot of food for thought. And would this team be better playing one of Martial or Coman from the start? Personally, I favor Martial. I think Coman's better as an impact substitute, given his pace and trickery, and playing basically a 4-2-3-1 with Payet operating centrally and Griezmann and Martial on the wings and Giroud ahead of them.
I agree with a lot of what's said, but I do think that fatigue plays a massive part in all of this for France. Not just for France as well, for a lot of teams. I mean, there have been some very good games so far in this tournament, but there have also been some very disappointing ones, and it's hard not to feel that, the fatigue that a lot of these players have accumulated over the course of the season, is not playing a part now. Of course it is. You look at someone like Griezmann. Deschamps was even speaking at the before the tournament even began, before Griezmann had even joined up with the squad, about how how Diego Simeone's tactics, the way he likes to play at Atletico Madrid, really runs the players into the ground. He was trying to look at the positives for Griezmann in the fact that it keeps him. It gets him accustomed to going long distances over the course of a season. But you've got to, when we're talking about people like Blaise Matuidi as well, it's not just been a particularly long season for Matuidi this season with PSG. He's had consecutive seasons where he's played sort of 50, 60, maybe even 70 games when you include international tournaments as well. It's it's no wonder that that some of these players struggle to perform when they're very nearly reaching burnout, and the tournament's only just begun.
Yeah, it's such a long season for a lot of players, Philip. But I do want to mention Griezmann again, who was criticised from some corners for his performance in the game. What did you think to how the Atletico Madrid man performed?
I thought, credit where it's due. I thought Romania defended quite well. I didn't think he had a particularly bad game. The only two players that I would criticize maybe is Pogba and Matuidi, who weren't as good as we would expect him to be. For me, Griezmann, I would agree with John whereas Griezmann has a massive season. I mean, a really, really massive season, and I wouldn't have been against Deschamps starting Coman, even though I do reckon Deschamps would favour starting Griezmann on the right hand side, starting Coman against say Romania and Albania, and let Griezmann have just do light training for a couple of days, and I think that would benefit Griezmann very much so for another game for the games in the knockout stages. But that's a risk, because we don't want to sound too arrogant and say it doesn't matter who we play, we're going to beat our three opponents and get 9 points out of 9 and be very good.
And
so I don't know. I didn't find him particularly. I didn't find him particularly bad. He could have done a bit better. He probably should have scored the goal where it was basically gaping. But I don't know. It's not that bad a performance, I reckon.
I think my only issue with Griezmann, and it was more evident when he came off and Dimitri Payet moved a little bit more centrally, is that he didn't add any width. I mean, we've mentioned that Coman starting might be a good idea to give them that extra width, but he seemed to pull inside a little bit too often and look for those spaces that were where Giroud was trying to sort of move into and try and find those bits. But let's talk another positive performance, and Jonathan, we were talking about Conte possibly starting in that midfield role. I thought it was excellent, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's fantastic. His ability to, to collect the ball, to bring it back into France's possession when they lose it is absolutely phenomenal, and he really anchors that midfield. I mean, Lassana Diarra brings so much to the French midfield when he's fit and on form. But I think for what Deschamps needs his defensive midfielder to do, I actually think that Conte is arguably a better fit than Diarra. Okay, he doesn't have the long passing ability that Diarra has, and doesn't have the same goal threat necessarily. Even though I wouldn't say that Lassana Diarra is a particularly prolific player either, but he does have a very good short passing game, and I think that's taken many people by surprise, because I think when you look at him, you just think that he's quite physical, quite athletic. But the thing that I think now limits France a bit is that you have two similar players in Conte and Matuidi. Matuidi is a bit more technically refined than Conte, but you wouldn't say that either of them have the same the same technique as the likes of a Paul Pogba or even a Yohan Cabaye. So I think that the dilemma that Deschamps has now is that Conte is proving himself to be indispensable, certainly in the form that he's in at the moment off the back of a fantastic season for Leicester. And he's now got somebody like Blaise Matuidi who when fully fit and rested, is indispensable, is really struggling for form at the moment, and has been for the last couple of months at PSG as well. I believe it's because of the fact that he's completely run into the ground all the time by club and country. But regardless, Deschamps is in this situation now and has to look at the performances that his players are putting in front of him. And I would say that Conte, absolutely has to start at the moment. He's looking fighting fit, in great form. And if he performs the same way that he did against Romania, against the likes of Albania and Switzerland, you can't see anybody dislodging him from that starting 11 for the rest of the tournament. And if Matuidi was to be dropped from that starting 11, which I don't think he will be just yet, but he could be if he replicates the Romania performance against Albania, you could move Pogba over to the left. It's his preferred position when in that midfield, and then you can bring somebody else into that midfield three on the right hand side if Deschamps chooses to keep the same formation, or you could change things around a little bit. And you could have Conte and Pogba there, and then you could have the likes of Payet, Coman, and perhaps a Martial or Griezmann if he decides that Griezmann doesn't need a rest, and that would change the approach that France take.
What about a 4-3-3 with
3D? Sorry, I'm not quite
Sorry,
sure why
just
it's.
quickly.
Sorry.
I'll go with Philip first, quickly.
Sorry, Eric. I'm not quite sure why it's Matuidi that's been favoured, because a really great point to see is that Matuidi is being played where he usually plays at club level, and in exactly the same formation. I don't watch Juventus, but it does look like Pogba is being played maybe more in a 3-5-2, but he seems to be playing more on the left-hand side of midfield. I'm not quite sure why it's Matuidi who gets a nod in that preferred position. Maybe Pogba can be a bit more, can do more things. But it really does sound from the friendlies against Cameroon and Scotland, and from the game on Friday evening, it really does seem like Pogba has a lot of trouble positioning himself, whereas Deschamps doesn't seem to have a problem with Matuidi's positioning. It's just that Matuidi's performances are not as good as we know they can be.
Well, I think the issue with Matuidi at the moment is that Deschamps has a lot of trust in him. He knows that he can rely on him, and when he's not worn out, he's completely right to have that faith in him. He does come up with the odd goal, more so than most of the midfielders. But the problem at the moment is fatigue, and you mentioned how it might have been a good idea to rest Griezmann for the first couple of games of the group stage, and then bring him in for Switzerland. I think it would have been a similarly smart idea with somebody like Matuidi, but Deschamps still has 2 games left in the group stage, and I think that maybe leaving him out of the starting 11 against Albania wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because Matuidi, when he is fully fit and able to focus on his football, he is an asset to have in that starting 11. But when he's not, when he's running on empty like he seems to be at the moment, that's when you start to have the problems. That's when you really start to see the limitations, because when Matuidi is able to play with as much heart as we normally see for PSG, he's an almost unstoppable force.
Eric, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, well, what I would say is, if I want to continue the 4-3-3 and privilege Pogba by playing on the left, I would start Schneiderlin and play Kante and Pogba in the further forward of those two, the 3 central midfield roles. I think that the Kante showed during the most recent set of friendlies, not the March ones rather, that he could play more forward at the base of midfield. And Schneiderlin is not as adept at creating play on the counter in terms of turning defense into offense, but as Kante is. But I still think he can be a reliable shield for that back four, and given the energy that Kante has, that seems to me to be the best thing to do going forward. If Deschamps does want to persist with the same front 3 of Giroud, Payet, and Griezmann, to play Kante and Pogba further forward and use Schneiderlin in the defensive role. I don't know what y'all's opinion on that is, but it seems to me to make the most sense in terms of tactical continuity.
I think that's a fair point. I think it makes an interesting ploy, and it's very strange that you all have slightly different ideas on how France would go forward against that game and against Albania. And I wanted to briefly talk about their opponents on tomorrow night. Jonathan, Albania, although they lost against Switzerland and went down to 10 men because Lorik Sana decided to be Lorik Sana for a day, but they performed reasonably well, even though they went down to 10 men for a long period of that game.
Yeah, they did. I think they really found their feet after conceding the goal. That was, that was the real shame. Particularly the goalkeeper Berisha. He really pulled off some fantastic saves, but the mistake had already been made, and he was, they were already down a goal at that point. I think the problem for Albania is scoring. I don't think it's so much, keeping teams out. Although the absence of Loik Sana might be a problem on that front. We'll have to wait and see. But I think the thing that France really have to be wary of at the moment is the fact that they've played Albania twice relatively recently, and they didn't beat them either time. They drew 1-1 when they played each other in Rennes, and they lost 1-0 away in Elbasan. So I think that France really shouldn't be taking this game lightly at all. And I think that if Deschamps does decide to bring in a couple of hungry players who are on the fringes and looking to try and nail down a place in the starting 11, the likes of Martial and Coman, then I think it's definitely the right time to use them. And I think having a bit more pace out wide as well would really benefit France in this game. And I think that Coman in particular, especially given the way that we've seen him perform in recent games, is ideal for this sort of match.
Yeah, and you mentioned there that Albania struggled to score as well, but Philippe Jan Sommer had a very excellent game that kept them out for a good few opportunities, and like Jonathan's mentioned, they've caused France problems in friendlies before.
Oh, she beat us.
Yeah,
she beat us in a qualifier that wasn't really a qualifier, because we were always going to qualify because we was a host nation. But to me, they seem like a very much like Romania. Probably a bit less quality, so very very hard to beat, very hard on the ball, and no, I don't I don't think they should be taken lightly, but I really don't think the players are taking this lightly. To me, it's the players are quite focused. They seem to be quite focused on getting this additional 3 points, and you know, if we have any troubles, we just give the ball to Payet. So all is well.
That seems to always be the plan at the moment. But Eric, just to finish off, they do have to be careful of Albania's danger man, who put in some superb balls against Switzerland. He really did. El Said Husaj from Napoli. He's a really top right back, isn't he?
Yeah, you know, he got forward a lot more than I would have expected. I mean, I've seen Napoli play 3 or 4 times this season, and he to me, it always seemed a little bit more of a defensive-minded player, but the attacking impetus that he showed in the match against Switzerland was really impressive, and I think that you know, Albania need. I would say they probably need a point in this match. So if they can continue to go for it a little bit more and play and get at France a little bit more, you know, Romania showed there are chances to be taken. I mean, let's not forget that the first real chance of the match on Friday evening did fall to Romania from a set piece, and you know, I wouldn't rule Albania out. Again, they're not going to be as solid defensively without Sana, even given his dismissal. You know, he's the captain of the team and has a vast amount of experience. So they are going to miss him in central defense, but you know, I think that Albania might take that as a chance to say, you know, we're so used to sitting back and we're so used to defending that if we can get at France a little bit more, you know, perhaps there is an opportunity to be had there. And let's face it, if he can play in the overlap and get at Patrice Evra, who again, you know, did not have the best of matches for France, I think that really gives Albania a decent shot to give France something to think about. I think that, you know, this has the potential to be, you know, certainly as equally troubling a match as Romania was.
Yeah, and also just to mention, that's also the side that Payet started against Romania, and he's not. Whilst he scores spectacular goals, he's not refined for his defending abilities as much. So it might be an area of concern for them. But we all know how valuable a win can be, and if Albania can nick a goal, you may never know. It'll be a difficult game. But with almost every single team now having played in the European Championships, Portugal and Iceland, are about to kick off in about 20 minutes just after the show. We've had a quick glimpse of everyone now and how each team have set up early doors. So just wanted to see who's impressed you and who's disappointed you so far. So I'll go with you first, Jonathan. Who has impressed you so far?
Well, I think you know, certainly been impressed by Hungary. I thought that was a fantastic performance earlier, arguably the performance of the tournament so far. Just quickly followed by Italy. I really didn't expect very much from Italy at all. But I mean, okay, I won't say pleasantly surprised because I thought it was a very, it was a very well organised, very, strong at the back sort of performance. I still think that they have problems going forward. Obviously, they didn't show that against Belgium, but I think it was partly because Italy were much better than many people expected, but at the same time, Belgium were much worse than many people expected. You know, it's a collection of fantastically talented footballers, but there seems to be zero team chemistry there. So I would say that, you know, Belgium have been the real disappointment so far. Italy and Hungary definitely two of the most impressive sides. For me, I think Hungary in particular, that's a really outstanding result, and if they can avoid defeat now and in their next 1 or 2 games, then you know they'll be making it through to the latter stages, and it'll be fantastic to see exactly what they can do.
Yeah, and it was a really interesting game earlier today. If you've not had a chance to catch it yet, it's absolutely one to watch. Philip, who's stood out for you so far, team wise?
I mean, I've been impressed with Ireland. I thought I really wasn't expecting them to be so good against Sweden. I was actually expecting Sweden to win this game quite easily. I thought the Norwich boys were very good, very energetic, and it wasn't like in the qualifiers one. I did only watch the games against Germany. I thought they were quite good as a unit. I'm very unlucky not to win the game, so I really do feel for them. We got Group A, B, C. Actually, Poland haven't really been that impressive. I think they should have won by more. Northern Ireland were quite poor. Northern Ireland were basically what I expected Ireland to be playing like. It wasn't very particularly good. And I saw, Croatia. I've been impressed with as well. I couldn't watch the game, but I was quite impressed. And Italy, of course. Italy, I thought as a unit, it was so great to watch that team play and score two wonderful goals. The second one is it's an empty net almost, but what a volley! Just to come back very, very quickly, I think we haven't praised enough Dimitri Payet, who got an 8 in L'Équipe, and who deserves more. I know Eric wanted to give him a 10, and
I think
sorry.
The only thing that I would say about Payet, if I had to really be nitpicking, was his set piece delivery early in the game wasn't particularly good. And I think if he can work on that a little bit, then he's going to be getting sort of 9s, 10s in those games. But to be able to deliver that sort of, or to produce that sort of finish, at that sort of moment with so much pressure on, it's absolutely fantastic. And this meteoric rise of his is just phenomenal. And you do wonder, realistically, if he keeps contributing for France in the way that he has been so far, if West Ham are going to be able to keep hold of him, for the start of next season, because it looks unlikely at the moment. Payet has exploded into a bona fide Premier League star, and at 29 years of age, there's not that much longer left for him to make a move to a really big club. So if one comes in this summer, you could probably see him wanting to go.
Yeah,
and the one guy we really should be criticising not is Ever. I thought he was extremely poor and showed his. For that foul, the penalty, is that guy even experienced? I mean, how can you make such a foul when you've got, I don't know how many caps he's got, but he's got quite a lot, and he's been criticised for his. For his action in the World Cup 6 years ago, and you wouldn't expect that guy to be a hindrance defensively. You would, people, the way Rami's been completely killed in the press, and from what I've been hearing as well, it really does seem like Ever got away with it and got away with murder. I mean, had Rami made that foul, people would have been going overboard. They'd say Deschamps was an idiot for starting him anyway. But Ever basically got away with it.
Yeah,
it was a really, really bad foul, and of course we forgot it because Payet scored this wonderful goal. I think I really think he's very lucky not to get killed in the press. I mean, L'Équipe rightly gave him a 3, and doesn't deserve more.
It was a little bit silly, wasn't it? But while Payet's been superb, we all just remember that goal really stands out from that game. But Eric, I think we've mentioned before how we've enjoyed defensive teams, and I'm sure you would have just enjoyed that display from Italy. But was there anyone else that impressed you as well?
Yeah, I think we've pretty much combed over all the teams, but I tell you who really has stood out to me. I think that is a player that people may have forgotten about, given the way that the MSN have played at Barcelona, is Andres Iniesta. I thought he was absolutely fantastic in that match against the Czech Republic. Not only the assist for PK's goal, but consistently, creating space and creating runs and just doing, let's face it, this player came third in the Ballon d'Or a few years ago, and he's still, this is probably one of his last tournaments, if it's not his last tournament at a top level. He'll be 34, I believe, by the time the next World Cup comes around. So his effectiveness will probably be somewhat limited by that point, but. Just really showing that this Spain team, again lacking the focal point that it always does, is still dangerous, and that's down to his individual skill. So I think that for me, other than Payet, I think Iniesta has been the standout individual over the first few matches of the tournament. Turkey, I think, were probably my disappointment. I thought they'd give Croatia a little bit more with Çalhanoğlu and Turan on the wings. That's a dangerous midfield, but. They just really couldn't put it together. Croatia, again, looked great. Modric was his typical best. The goal notwithstanding, just great box-to-box energy. That's kind of what I've taken away from the tournament so far. I think that, Iniesta is definitely a well-known name, but, probably hasn't gotten the press that he was getting 2 or 3 years ago prior to the arrivals of Neymar and Suarez to Barcelona.
Yeah, just before you go, Jonathan, I just wanted to ask you the last quick question. Who was your disappointment really from this first week?
Well, like I said, I thought Belgium were extremely disappointing. I was also disappointed with Austria, considering that I backed them as dark horses before the tournament. I really didn't expect them to be beaten the way that they were by Hungary. But by the same token, you really have to praise Hungary for the performance they put in. So I find it a bit harsh saying that both Hungary were one of my biggest surprises and that Austria were one of my biggest disappointments. Because I think if I say Austria is one of the biggest disappointments, it kind of detracts a bit from Hungary's from Hungary's achievements. Yeah, but for me, I think that Belgium really were the big disappointment. I agree with Turkey as well. I thought that I expected a lot more from them. I expected a lot more intensity. I expected that game against Croatia to become a bit more of an event. And Sweden as well, very, very disappointing, very flat. And considering how easy things looked on paper going into the tournament with Italy naming such a weakened squad, I think that performance against Belgium is really going to have Sweden concerned now. If they weren't initially targeting third place at best in the group, I think that they're probably going to be thinking that they're going to be lucky to get that now, considering that they've already played what was supposed to be their easiest game, and they're essentially looking at the Belgium game, hoping that that's going to be the one where they're going to be able to get enough points to get out of the group. So I think that Sweden really have a job on their hands now to avoid being the team that finishes bottom of that group.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us again, Jonathan. It's been great having you on. Remember, everyone at home, follow him at John_LaGossip. He's always a great reader. Thank you for joining us.
Great, thanks a lot for having me on, guys, and speak to you soon.
Yeah, speak to you soon. I just wanted to mention really some of the teams that have impressed me as well during this tournament. I mean, a lot of them have been touched upon. Italy were sensational last night, especially at the back. Those three from Juventus and Buffon obviously were absolutely sensational at times and were really steady as a rock. But Belgium at the same time made it very easy for them. I thought Croatia were excellent. They really should have scored more than they did. But Luka Modric and Ivan Rakitic are rivaling anyone in world football really as a centre midfield partnership for a nation. And I have to give some props to my second country, as I like to call them, in Wales. I thought, especially in that first half, they really showed a gutso and a strength against a decent Slovakia team who've caused other teams problems like Germany and Spain in recent times. And they pulled a result out of the bag that essentially, in this kind of tournament where 4 third-place teams will go through, a win almost guarantees your qualification. And it really, really is a strong moment for Wales. And I'm really happy for them as long as they don't win the game on Thursday. But Philip, who's disappointed you so far?
With all this action, I haven't been able to watch that much. I guess I've been disappointed by Russia because they were quite what do we say? They fought with what they had. Northern Ireland were too negative. I don't, it's the same thing. You can't really expect Northern Ireland with the squad they have to be competing with a team like Poland. I'll tell you one thing. I was actually quite impressed in the first half with Ukraine against Germany, and Neuer pulled out a couple of worldies. Probably the best saves of the tournament so far, I would say. The saves he pulled out against the Ukrainians in the end of the first half, and but then Toni Kroos, which is a player who I really think he should up his game and become Germany's basically be Germany's guy who says, okay, we up the tempo now, and okay, we sit deep now, and he's really done that in the second half. I believe the Germans got rollicking by Jogi Löw at half time, and then Germany just were all over Ukraine, and Ukraine couldn't do anything. It just could not get on the ball. Neuer was not particularly worried after that. And I was quite impressed, and yeah, maybe I would have thought Ukraine would have had more reactions to Germany's reaction. But there's a game, Ukraine versus Poland, which will be in Marseille. Hopefully, it won't be as bad as the last one. Ukraine versus Poland is going to be quite good. 2 very solid units, and to me, the winner of that one will finish second. and that will be a pretty good game, I would think. It should be quite interesting. I can't really say much about Group D as haven't been able to watch. Belgium were extremely disappointing, obviously. Very disappointing in Lukaku as well. We've been talking about him saying at PSG, and I think it just shows his limit right now. Hazard has played like he plays for Chelsea. De Bruyne was you cannot really recognise De Bruyne, but it's always the same thing. Yeah, we praise Italy a lot, criticise Belgium a lot, and I'm not quite sure it's a case of Belgium being bad. Just having an off day. I think it's Belgium being bad because Italy were quite good. So that's it. And yeah, Austria. Austria were not quite up to scratch, but I wouldn't put it past them to have a strong reaction against Portugal.
That's a difficult game for them to have to bounce back in, really. But Eric, you mentioned Iniesta then as someone who's impressed you. Is there anyone else individually who's impressed you during this tournament, or anyone who's probably not lived up to the expectations you were setting of them?
It's hard to say. Again, from an individual perspective, I think going back to Spain, I think Nolito didn't have the best game. I mean, he's someone that's been talked up quite a bit before the tournament, and I had a wonderful season at Celta Vigo. Had been linked with a move to Barcelona. He didn't really impress me that much in that match. Seemed to just be getting in Iniesta's way for the most part, not really creating space. Elsewise, there's not too much I could pick out on an individual level. I think that Lukaku, yeah, I'd agree with that as well. But yeah, otherwise not so much. I think that on the whole, this tournament's been, really enjoyable. I don't think that, other than perhaps Austria today and Turkey, there haven't been too much in the way of team performances that have disappointed me. I think that the teams have really played up to their level or surpassed it. I think that that's made for a really enjoyable tournament. So there's not too much negative that I put towards the tournament in a negative fashion. Portugal and Iceland can still disappoint us in a few minutes' time. I mean, given Portugal's uneven history in the recent past in major tournaments, but now that Hungary have won, I think that really throws that group open. I mean, whichever one of those teams can come out and grab the brass ring, as it were, can really put themselves in good position to win that group. Hungary played out of their skulls today, but I can still see them coming bottom, depending on how results go over the next week or so. But yeah, just a lot of enjoyable football, and I think that again, the way that this tournament's set up, nobody's out of it yet. So there's a lot to look forward to in the next week or so.
Yeah, and there has been a couple of players that have impressed me, and I'm going as I tend to do for the younger slant of players. And for the one that really impressed me in the Poland game was Kapustka, the midfielder, who still plays in Poland. He's just about to turn 20, I believe. Who started instead of Zielinski, who's had a superb season for Empoli on loan from Udinese, and has been linked with a move to Liverpool, who I thought would start that game, but clearly the Polish manager knows a little bit more than I do, and this Kapustka was absolutely excellent. I mean, especially in the second half when he got on the ball a little bit more. He moved possession very well, he used the ball cleverly, he was quick thinking, he made them shift up a gear, and with Milik finding that bit of space because Lewandowski was treated like a prisoner under house arrest by two defenders, and scoring, he eventually found the space for the goal as well. I thought Kapustka really added that extra dimension to Poland that they struggled at times to break Northern Ireland down. The other player I just wanted to briefly pop on, and it was on a team that you've mentioned, Eric, and I agree that were really poor. I mean, Turkey were really, really disappointing, but I was really excited when Emre Mor came on the field. I thought, even though his cameo was relatively short, it was about 20 minutes or so, I thought he was really, really exciting. Every time he touched the ball, he would He's got quick feet. He wanted to move forward with the ball and attack and try and do something a little bit different and add that extra dimension that they'd struggled to have up front. And that it's so strange with so many good attacking players in that Turkey team that they never really seem to really trouble Croatia at any point. But I think he looks like an excellent young player. I know Borussia Dortmund have just signed him, and yet again, that seems to be another cracking piece of business for them. That's another young player they can put in the locker to their very crazy, quick attacking football that they love to play. But Philip, is there anyone else that, on a particularly individual level? I mean, the one I'd quite like to mention, and I don't know if you'd like to talk about it because you watched it live, is I thought Wayne Rooney had a very excellent game in midfield for England.
You know, lots of people have said that. He got a 7 on L'Equipe. I don't see. I mean, yeah, he got a good first half, but second half he was as active as Harry Kane. He was knackered. He was absolutely knackered. He just could not run. The only guy who could run was Sterling, and he lost the ball because either he had to wait for the players to keep the pace with him, which they didn't, or he just got eaten by the fullback or Berzutski. I mean, sure, he had a fine first half, but really a good game. I wouldn't say it was a good game. No. I mean, I'm quite surprised. I mean, what did he actually do in the second half?
What did anyone do in the second half? It's probably the right question. I thought he controlled the game very well. Personally, I don't know. I know Eric, you watched the game as well. What did you think to Rooney's game? I thought he controlled the tempo of England's play quite well from that midfield area.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think if this is a role he can adapt, and he's. I mean, this to me, honestly, you know, Wayne Rooney's not exactly been known for his maturity down the years, but I think that, you know, now that he's the elder statesman on the team, along with James Milner, you know, I think that he's really matured in this role, and I think that he's showing a willingness not to be self-centered, but to put himself in a role where he can do what the team needs, not you know, whether it's not necessarily the ideal use of his talents, but he recognizes the ability of the likes of Kane and Vardy, even though Vardy didn't play, to make the team a more effective and cohesive whole. And you know, let's face it. I mean, England, I think, are still probably favorites to win this group. But you know, the more this team can learn to grow together and play in these new roles, I think that they've got a real chance to maybe do something beyond the habitual quarterfinals in this tournament.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting dynamic in that group with Wales getting that win and teams facing off in each other. But just before the end, we finish it. Sorry, carry on, Philip.
I'm quite sympathetic with Dele Alli, because I thought he didn't have we didn't see him all that much, but that the combination of England's setup did not suit him. I really do think that Rooney is a world-class second striker, sorry, as in number 10, and that Ali probably shouldn't have been playing where he was playing. It didn't really suit him. Not that he had a bad game, but I think if you would have put him in a different kind of formation, he would have had a much better game. And speaking of formation, I find it extremely odd that Hodgson plays a 4-2-3-1 for most of his England tenure. Then for three friendlies, he goes to diamond shape 4-4-2. He doesn't really know how to use it, because he plays the two forwards, tracking back on the fullbacks, which really is complete nonsense. And then he goes back to a 4-2-3-1 in a very important game at the Euros against Russia. And well, I'm sorry, but I mean, I don't see England going far. I don't see England winning it. I've never seen England winning it because of mental strengths. I mean, I'm quite convinced that if they do meet France or Germany or Spain, that they'll get knocked out. But Christ, they could have done with better preparation formation-wise, because you got Hodgson saying stupid things like formations don't win you football games. Players do. It's just like what is your job? So yeah, that's a very, you know, it's very harsh on Dele Alli. I don't know what your opinion on this is, guys, but it's extremely harsh on him.
I mentioned on the preview show beforehand that I think we should play 4-1-2-1-2 because it suits the players that we have a little bit better. But
does Hodgson know how to play it?
No, that was my worry for it.
That is a problem. That is quite a big problem.
Yeah. Just before we go, really, Philip, I just wanted to get very quickly, since you weren't on the show last week, quick predictions. Who do you think will win the tournament? You get an advantage of a week extra.
Yeah, yes. So you both predicted Germany to do very well. Yourself and Christian. It depends on the mentality as well. I think France are going to win it, as the players will go from strength to strength. I had Belgium as favourites, and I thought they would not destroy Italy, but play really better than they did last night. And I can't really see winning it between France. Who else is going to win it between except France, Germany, France or Germany? Maybe Spain. I haven't seen Spain play, so it's a bit hard to say. But I'm gonna say France.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So thank you. That's all for this week. My thanks to Eric, Philip, and Jonathan for joining us this evening, and thank you to everyone tuning in at home. Let's hope that for the next 3 weeks we don't have quite as many incidents off the field and things get back to things on the pitch. A bientôt, everyone, and goodbye.